Look, I've been in this business 50 years. I've seen the Army break 4 times in those 50 years, and every time the pink slips start going out, the administrations have always said it's going to be fine, no one's going to be hurt, we're going to treat them fairly, and in 50 years they never are treated fairly, and it becomes a story that the nation is perfectly willing to forget.
The Army is not just a career, it's not just a vocation for people who decide to stay in for a long time, it's a lifestyle. And to say, I'm sorry, we don't need you anymore, feels like it's unfair, it feels like betrayal.
Well, the Army is going from 520,000 soldiers to 450,000 soldiers. Cutting back, drawing down, but some of those pink slips are actually going out while these soldiers are in combat, in a battle zone. Here's what Army spokeswoman said. As the Army implements its drawdown strategy to balance the force and sustain capability and readiness, we continue to treat our all-volunteer force with dignity and respect, recognizing the service and sacrifices of our soldiers and their families. The Army's priority remains retaining soldiers with the greatest potential for continued service while encouraging quality soldiers to transition from the active component to continue to serve in the reserve component. Well, what about this? Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard, A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles.
Well, look, there's the human factor here. There's the fact that this is a pretty horrible way to let people know that they're going to lose their job and their vocation while they're still in the field. But the larger issue from the national interest is, why in God's name are we doing this? This is the most highly trained force in the world for counterinsurgency. It's unique in the world. The price has been high, the blood has been paid. But one of the benefits of this is that we have a tremendous fighting force, and we are now reducing it for no reason whatsoever. I know they're going to say the sequester. Sequester is not an act of God, it's an act of man. And there are obviously rational ways to handle the budget, but taking it out of defense, which is already hugely reduced, is a terrible mistake. We have an Al-Qaeda state just established in the Middle East. It's the first new state in the Middle East since 1948. And we are now dismantling our army and firing the best, the most well-trained, experienced of our soldiers as a way to save a few $1 billion here and there, when we are squandering it in $500 billion tranches on other stuff in the budget. This is unbelievably irresponsible and uncaring.
Well, to your point, a New York Post article, a couple of quotes. A senior Defense Department official warned, quote, if the force is smaller, there's less margin for error. Let's face it, things are pretty uncertain out there. And the Army Vice Chief of Staff, General John Campbell, said this: in other times, they'd probably continue to stay in the Army. But these are not normal times. Maybe.
Yeah, Charles is right. They're getting rid of some of their best. And if you imagine that someone signed up after 9/11 and has been for however many years serving in multiple deployments and 2 wars, but doesn't have a 20-year record in the service, is going to be told while they're in theater, in harm's way, that they have to start worrying for their livelihood, and they don't get a pension because they haven't been there long enough. But they've been through our longest wars. I just find it so unnecessarily cruel that there had to be a better way that this could have been handled. You can make the argument that this affects readiness and that we're depleting the most important part of our military, but just for this one thing about cutting down on jobs, I just can't imagine it had to be handled this way.
Steve, this shocked a lot of people we talked to today, just hearing that these pink slips were going out while they're deployed in an environment where the government can't fire IRS officials, they can't fire anybody at the State Department responsible for Benghazi, they can't fire anybody, it seems, and yet the people they can fire are the people who are deployed in war zones.
The people who put themselves in harm's way to protect the rest of us. Yeah, no, I mean, the double standard is extraordinary, but they don't have the kind of civil service protections that unions fought so hard to create for other federal workers. Charles framed it exactly right. I mean, on the one side, it is the human aspect of this is the way that they've handled it is so amateurish and so unworthy of the kind of service that we've seen these men and women provide. The policy side of this is deeply troubling. These are the kind of things you would be doing if you thought we were headed into an era of peace and prosperity. I mean, it's not just that we have this growing al-Qaeda state, the caliphate, in Iraq and Syria, but the world is blowing up. I mean, the instability in the world is probably greater now than it has been at any time in the past 20, 30 years. And these are the people who have experience doing precisely the kinds of things that we're going to have to do as a country, I think, inevitably, in the decades to come because of the failures of this administration. We are now talking about reducing our military presence not only abroad, but our military here at home at a time when the world is likely to need us more than they have any time in recent memory.
Let me push back to what they say. The administration says they're shifting the Pentagon to be more agile, more able to deal with and special ops. We've heard this many times. I heard it when I covered the Pentagon with Secretary Rumsfeld, that it was going to be more agile, more able to deal.
There was only one time when that was a credible argument. At the end of the Cold War, when we had all these divisions in Europe who were ready for a conventional World War III, and that was not going to be a threat, and we had to change and to adapt to a mobile anti-guerrilla force, which is what we have now. But that's the threat we are looking at for the next 20, 30 years. And these are exactly the people who've been through it, who know how to fight it, who know how to teach it. As they age, they'll be able to go ahead and to train a new generation. That is the worst argument of all. This is clearly a giant shift of a social democrat, Barack Obama, as Europe did after the Second World War, of money from the military, which we are already at the bare bones, into entitlements and social welfare. That's exactly what's going. It's not a balancing of the forces. It's robbing the military to inflate the entitlement state, and that we're going to pay a high price. Europe had us behind them in the last 50 years when it had no military. There's nobody who'll back us up if we strip our military and denude it as we're doing now.
Is there a political price on this and this kind of story? I mean, there have been a number of stories that are problematic for red state Democrats running for re-election with this administration. This one seems to add to the list.
Right. I think it's very, very tough to defend for any vulnerable Democrat right now. The problem is it's tough. Republicans didn't go to bat to reshape the sequester either. People are tired of war, and so you don't have a coalition really working to stop this.
And that's why you need a president, and we don't have one.
And the reality is, you know, elected officials, particularly those in Washington, really care deeply about men and women in uniform when there are big stories like this. They care a lot less about men and women in uniform, as we've seen with the VA scandal, when there's not a light shining on them.
Next up, the Friday Lightning Round.